I start with a simple sketch of a man with 4 arms. Maybe he is some kind of a demon or mutant, maybe he had some surgery done, it doesn't really matter. I have some ideas for a simple narrative, but I will deal with those later. This is all I need for now. Instead of making a more detailed sketch, I build a simplistic diorama using clay. With this I can be sure that everything is placed where it should be and that all the lights and shadows are working properly. It is less time consuming than making it in a 3D program, and it is way more fun. This is the photo I took after the lights were placed. There are clearly some problems with composition, but nothing that I couldn't solve in the next stage. I continue in Painter 2018. I rotate and move the photo to fit the frame. I cut the parts and move them around to make the composition a little bit better. I also use the color correction effect, which is very similar to the curves adjustment from Photoshop and can be found in the Tonal Control tab, which is located under Effects in the main menu. It's basically a more advanced way to change the brightness and contrast of the image. I switch to Photoshop for a little while and use a brush that paints with random colors to add more hues to the otherwise dull picture. I sketch all the anatomical details over the sculpture. Although I know some stuff already, I still use a lot of reference pictures to make sure that everything is in order. The only thing I have to deal with now is how the second pair of arms is connected to the body. I add a second pair of collarbones and divide the pectoral muscle group into 2 parts. In order to draw the arm muscles correctly, I first draw the arm bones. I especially focus on the bones of the forearm. Now I can finally paint. I'm using a soft brush, which can be found in the Painter 2018 brush library in the oils group, and it's called Fine Soft Brush Round. It's a regular soft brush that also mixes with the underlying colors and makes the blending easier, and it feels very natural. After a quick edit, I continue with the head, where I focus on his expression, and then I do some more rendering. I go to Photoshop for some more editing. This time the goal is to add colors. The main palette is determined by the 2 light sources, a cold blue one from above and a warm firelight from the front. I use a gradient map overlay to do that. After adjusting the values with curves, I accentuate the main light with a color dodge layer and I adjust the values a little bit more. Next I use another layer on overlay mode to add more local colors to the character. I add more details and I continue rendering. After adding some more stuff in the background to expand it further in the distance, I do some more adjusting and color experiments. I use mainly color gradients. I do this part again in Photoshop because these tools are a little bit faster here and I got used to it over the years. I use selections and liquify tool to correct some mistakes. Then I continue painting. I use my own hands for reference for this part and I try to match the lights and shadows to the rest of the scene. I change the non-specific shapes on the ground into household objects to add more narrative. After some more rendering, I select the dense impasto block jitter brush, which is another default painter brush found in the Painter 2018 brush library in the impasto group. This brush, just as the one I have been using before, adds color and blends it with the underlying picture. And it also simulates a thick three-dimensional layer of paint. It creates a very nice painterly effect. It could be adjusted further, but for this purpose, the default setting is sufficient. To humanize the creepy animal-like character, I add a handmade necklace, goggles, several watches, and a little pink backpack with flowers on it. After more rendering with the soft chalk brush, I am nearly finished. To add even more colors, I select the only custom brush I made for this project, which is a hard media pastel brush with the hue variability turned all the way up. It paints with all the colors, and I use it on a separate layer set to overlay blend mode. Because of the way this brush behaves in an empty layer, I fill it first with 50% gray to make the blending smoother. When I'm done painting, I add a photo texture I prepared earlier to add some surface detail. In this case, I'm using a combination of an old grainy paper and the surface of an oil painting. The last step is to add the high pass effect that sharpens the whole image. In order to do this, I copy the main painting layer, go to the effects panel, Esoterica group, and select the high pass effect. There are two options available, so pick the one that is mostly gray. I set the layer to overlay and I'm done.